Good morning, everyone. Today, Voices of Change, alongside with the Roundtable, we'll be hosting the show together, talking about local politics and national politics as well. Good morning, Fernando.
Good morning. Buenos días, señores oyentes de USA la Media. Estamos aquí en la mesa redonda en combinación con Voices of Change. Leslie Acosta and I will be hosting the show. Bienvenidos a USA la Media. Buenos días.
Buenos días, Fernando. It's always a pleasure to have a lot of interesting news today, Wednesday, the 31st. There's a lot going on.
31st and almost April Fools.
Right.
So you would think, if we were doing it tomorrow, it would be April Fools for some of the stuff that I'm reading about. Anyway.
Yeah. A lot of interesting things. The top of the list. Let's talk about the investment potentially of $3 trillion in infrastructure and social programs. Let's talk a little bit about that, Fernando.
Yeah, President Joe Biden is in Pittsburgh Wednesday to announce plans to potentially invest $3 trillion in infrastructure and social programs. That's from the Tribune Review. So, Leslie, you were saying at some point that you're not quite in agreement with all this.
Well, I'm in agreement of, pumping in funding for social programs if it's really going to help, if the money's going to trickle down efficiently and effectively towards the people that really need it. The problem with this is that across the federal government, there's almost $300+ million that goes towards entitlement programs. And when we talk about entitlement programs, we talk about SNAP, we talk about social programs like welfare, like housing assistance. We have here in Philadelphia, the light heat program. These programs are there essentially to help people that can't, survive. They only live on a fixed income. The issue that I have with these types of social programs is a lot of money is being provided or these programs are being funded, but 60% of the money that comes in, it goes towards administrative costs. Case in point, let's talk about here in the city. Aquí mismo in North Central Philadelphia, Fernando, we have Congreso, we have Concilio, we have Casa del Carmen, we have all of these social programs that we have in the inner city. And yet the poverty level in our communities is excessively high. So if these social programs that we have, they're receiving, or they do have money and potentially to receive $3 trillion to pump money into these programs, and yet the money is not being spent wisely and effective and efficiently and trickle down to the people that really need it, it defeats the purpose of having these social programs in place, because the point is to help people that are struggling and people that are in poverty. And oftentimes, you and I know, Fernando, you sat on these boards, on many boards, sometimes that is not the case, because a lot of the money goes towards administrative costs. And I have an issue with that.
I agree with you. I have the experience of being on a couple of boards, and I know that a lot of the money goes to administrative costs. And the core issue here of what you just said is, with all these institutions in the neighborhood, in the barrio, that could have and should have taken a large number of people out of poverty, or at least help them with educational needs, with housing needs, with jobs and so on, that it has not happened. So in the poorest urban center in the country, Philadelphia, we have the poorest neighborhood in the city.
Yeah, and exactly right.
And decades of this promises by the Democratic Party. Okay, let's one party that is responsible for this. It's not all the Democratic Party, but there is plenty of blame to go around. But the Democrats have controlled the city since 1953. Why are we the poorest urban area if the Democrats have promised, even from the time of Lyndon Johnson, the war on poverty. Since that time, we still poor.
Yeah. To me, that is such a perplex situation, especially here, a first-class city like Philadelphia. As you know, a lot of money comes into the city of Philadelphia, Fernando, a lot.
Where does it go?
Yeah, a lot of development in the city. And guess what? This development that's coming into the city should be, paramount to this city decreasing some of the poverty levels because it's excessively high. I think we've surpassed Camden, New Jersey, which was ranked number one when it comes to poverty issues in this country. So I don't know, there's definitely a disconnect between the money, because the money is there, and how the money is being spent by these entities that we have in el barrio, in our communities, in our neighborhoods. When you have a CEO, and people might argue against this, and rightly so, and arguably so, when you have a CEO of a nonprofit like a Congreso or like a Concilio making over $200,000 or more, I mean, that's excessive, Fernando. That's excessive. I think, and yeah, we talk about the administrative cost, but when the administrative cost is excessively high, there is no way that you're able to take the money that should be allocated to provide services for people and do it effectively and efficiently when the money is not being spent correctly. So I think there's a mismanagement of money in combination of not effectively of finding ways and solutions to get this money to the people that really need the help. And that's my assessment of this.
Well, you mentioned the fact that the CEOs of Congreso and other entities, nonprofits in the city, are paid over $200,000. But if you have the board discussing this question, it comes down to this. If you want really well-qualified people, able leaders, and you want to keep them, you have to pay them, because those are very competitive salaries. And these are people who are well-trained, good and effective executives.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I'm not saying all of them are, but I think for the most part, the ones I know about, they're all well-qualified and they deserve that. It's very difficult to run a large concern like Congreso with, if you don't have the right executive.
Yeah, you see, so there's two arguments to that, right? You have people that agree, like yourself, with that, and like myself, that I'm a little not too in favor of that. But there's always room for discussion on that. But oftentimes, Fernando, we have to be honest with this. We bring people that are not from the barrio, and probably is because we can't find people that are qualified. I don't know. I believe we do have qualified people that live in the barrio, but oftentimes when we select these people to run these agencies, we select them and they don't even live in this community. They don't understand the intricacies of what's going on in the community, the dynamics of this community, the culture of this community. So you bring other people from the outside to come in to make changes or to help. And I think anyone that's in a position of an executive like that, an entity like Congreso that was based, it was barrio based, it was founded by people from this community, you should at least bring someone in. Yeah, education is important. Being well qualified is also important, but understanding the issues of the people that are living in el barrio and the intricacy of that is very important. And people that come from the outside that have never lived in North Central Philadelphia or have never lived in el barrio, I think is a very challenging prospect for them to understand those issues. But there's always two sides of the argument on this issue.
Yeah, I don't think that not living in the barrio is necessarily something to disqualify one of the people in position of responsibility. I think that in Congreso, for instance, I know the CEO doesn't live in the barrio. However, there are very few people more acquainted with the issues of the barrio because everybody below the CEO, everybody has been drawn from people from the neighborhood, Hispanic people who know the area. So each area of responsibility has people in charge who know the needs of the barrio.
Well, and that, but case, okay, that, and I can give you that point. The other thing is the board. I mean, not only Congreso, the boards that that sit in these agencies. Oftentimes, people that sit on these boards people that don't even live in this barrio at all. I remember when Congreso was established in the 70s. The people that sat on that board, they live in El Barrio. They were from El Barrio. And I know there has to be an evolution of the thinking so that the agency can progress in the direction of growth and expansion. But I get that. But oftentimes that can be a curse and that can be a blessing. So, let's take Congreso. Congreso runs with a $25 million budget annually. And yet look at our surroundings. Our surroundings are still dilapidated. Social services that are provided from these agencies, not only Congreso, let's talk about, just to say across the board. I mean, something has to give here. I think a different way or approach a conversation has to be held, because this has been going on for years, and this problem does not, it seems to be exacerbated. It doesn't seem to be contained at all. And here's the other thing: the more poverty you have in el barrio, the more money you get. So having people living in oppression and depression and poverty is good for these agencies, because they have justification to ask for money and to get the funding for it. So this is kind of a curse and a blessing at the same time.
Yeah, well, I hate to pick on Congreso. I mean, I think Congreso is actually one of those entities that has done a lot of good. I mean, I'm familiar with some of the activities of Congreso.
Yes.
The Pan American Charter School has been a great source of for our neighborhood, for that neighborhood, for the kids, and the alliance with the possibility that they could go to college, and those are positives. I think that.
But you know what made that positive, Fernando? And I don't mean to cut you off quickly, but we selected, and I think you were part of that selection, that when the board sat and they wanted to select someone to run that school. We have to give kudos to Wanda Novales, we went to school together. We graduated from Masbom High School together. Wanda's a well-educated woman. She was selected for that position to run that school. She's a Christian woman. She's pastoring a church now. So she's a woman from El Barrio, una mujer educada del barrio, who was selected to run that school, and she took that baby, that brainchild, and she developed it. And today we have a school in El Barrio, thanks to the success of people like yourself and the board who gave Wanda Novales the opportunity to be the principal of that school and to expand the school to what it is today.
Yes, Wanda was given a desk and instructions to get a school going, and that's all she knew from the board.
Yeah,
and she did it, and so she's one of my heroes. She's one of my favorite people ever in terms of education, what she did with that school.
Yeah, she's
so. But we have had other people in positions of leadership from the barrio. Remember that before 1977, when the new Congreso was sort of reborn, that there was a period there in which there was people from the barrio who were not doing the best job. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I agree. You have your good apples and you have your bad apples, and I give you that. And the person that was there, by the way, and I can say this publicly, Carmen Bolden passed away. She was one of the founders of Congreso, and she got into, she did things that she was not supposed to do at Congreso, and that kind of gave a bad name to this agency, to this nonprofit. Then you had Alba Martinez, who came on board and turned things around. Then you had a couple of people that came in between, and then you have Figueroa. The other issue that I have with this, Fernando, is people come in and they use these nonprofit agencies with a lot of money, with a lot of funding, and they use it as a stepping stone to move into other careers. And that's, look, that's fine. That's okay. But permanency and being consistent is important to run an agency. But if you're looking to use it as a stepping stone for your career, that's another discussion that we can have. But at least we have Congreso. At least we have Congreso en el barrio. We have Concilio. We have a lot of nonprofits here doing good work. And we also want to highlight the work that has been done, the evolution of these nonprofits in el barrio.
Yes. There has been a lot of progress, actually, in terms of the community. I mean, the neighborhood, as you say, the neighborhood has not changed drastically, but everybody comes in. I mean, Mayor Kenny came in promising to do miracles with Calle Cinco. What do you see there now?
Nothing. Calle Cinco is dead on arrival. After the pandemic, all the businesses have shut down. We had an anchor business on 5th and on Indiana, I think it is, Indiana or Somerset, one of those two. El Bohío. It was one of our anchors institutions in el barrio. One of our restaurants, Spanish restaurants, is closed. The COVID hit, and the owner passed away. The wife took over the restaurant and could not run the restaurant. I mean, she got, the restaurant got it. Anchors institutions like that have been a fixture in our communities for years, have been hit. Businesses along the 5th Street corridor, they literally have shut down. We have over 100 and some businesses in the 5th Street corridor, and you go through 5th Street, you see nothing. It's dead. We have to somehow revive el Bloque de Oro. I know ACE has a business office there, but I don't know how much ACE can do to revive the businesses that we did have on el Bloque de Oro.
Leslie, this requires a conversation with as many of the CEOs as would agree to show up.
Yeah.
And the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and maybe somebody from the city, and have a panel to discuss that situation, because what's going to happen? I mean, so they bring billions of dollars, supposedly, to the city, and what happens to that money? How is it diluted that all of a sudden it disappears and poverty is still there? Once we go to the other side and all of a sudden, okay, there's no more money, what happened to the money? Who got it and what happened to it?
Fernando, I think talking about this, I think Usala is in a very good position, and we can have this conversation off the air to facilitate a meeting, have a meeting of the minds with these nonprofit organizations right here at Usala, and bring yourself and other people, anchor people like yourself and other people that have done a lot of good work in our community. You've been involved in El Barrio for a long time, Fernando, for a long time. Your contributions to El Barrio, even with the Hispanic Chamber that you were one of the founders, you've done a lot. So I think we need to bring people of that caliber to have the meetings of the mind to see how we can, what monies can be pumped back into our communities to revive these businesses. And I think these nonprofits getting all this kind of money, because it's a lot of money. $3 trillion is a lot. $3 trillion is enough to eradicate poverty in the city of Philadelphia. If we just take half of that and we get these social services and these nonprofit organizations to sit at the table and come up with a solution to revise these businesses, I think that's a conversation that we need to have. Starting from Luis Cortez, who has Esperanza, ACE needs to be seated at that table. All of these nonprofit organizations, even the churches, play a big role in this decision making, because churches are anchors of this community as well. So I think this is a conversation that we should discuss and have, and possibly have a meeting here and have a live conversation right here at USALA with these leaders of this community to discuss that very issue and how those $3 trillion are going to be spent in our communities.
Okay, thank you for that, Leslie. We're going to take a brief pause here in USALA Media, and we'll come back in this conversation with Leslie, Voices of Change, and no se vayan porque hay más, hay mucho más que hablar. Regresamos en un momento aquí. Dani Ramos, controlando la máquina digital. Saludos amigos, los invitamos a escuchar la mesa redonda de Roundtable, donde discutimos los temas del día, hablando de política, educación y otros temas, locales, regionales y mundiales, por USALA Radio. Bueno, estamos de regreso aquí en USALA Radio. Estamos en una conversación con Leslie Acosta de Voices of Change. Este es un programa especial entre la Mesa Redonda y Voices of Change. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Dani Ramos controlando la máquina digital. So Leslie Acosta has a bone to pick with this $3 trillion that are being dispensed by the government, and what is going to happen to that money. So we have decided that we need more people to participate in this discussion.
Absolutely.
We'll try to organize something at a future time. I mean, but we have other topics to discuss out here. One of them, close to your heart because you like these political discussions. DA Larry Krasner won't be nominated for the May primary by the Philadelphia Democratic City Committee, nor will his primary opponent, Carlos Vega. So what are they going to do?
Well, listen, Fernando.
What?
This was a given. This was a given that the Democratic Party, same thing that they did to Maria Quinones, they went with the person. They went against the person that's the sitting district attorney currently. So, unfortunately, the Democratic Party has the bad habit of picking people that are not going to win. They're not going to win. It's not going to happen. Okay, and it's not that I don't like Carlos Vega by any means. I think the guy is well qualified. He spent 30-some years in the district attorney's office. But the reality of the matter is that Larry Krasner will win re-election with or without the support of the Democratic Party. The African-American vote will break for Larry Krasner heavily. And the other issue here is, and you know, I like talking about this, I get animated about this, Fernando, because this is right up my alley. So you have two power players here in the city, ward leaders, that are endorsing Carlos Vega, which is Carlos Mato, and you have Angel Cruz. Now, if you look at these two districts, the 7th and the 19th ward, it's not enough Latino vote to get Carlos Vega over the hump. What they're doing is negotiating with Carlos Vega. Let's talk raw politics to get money, because this is what it's about. This is not about, the endorsement is not about Carlos Vega's winning the primary. The endorsement is about Carlos Vega pumping money to these two war leaders and to the Democratic Party to make money. It's not about winning. It's about making money. So Larry Krasner has a lot of money, and he's not going to play ball with Carlos Matos, and he's not going to play ball with Angel Cruz. Because why? Number one, they're not going to shake him down for money. And these two clowns that we have as war leaders in the Democratic Party, they're shaking Carlos Vega down. And if that's what he wants to do, that's his business. I mean, he can spend his money the way he wants. But the reality of the situation, mark my words, today is March 31st at 10:35 in the morning. Carlos Vegas will not win the primary. It will never happen. It's just not there for him. The numbers are not there. The clout is not there. The African-American vote is not there. The 12% Latino vote is not there for Carlos Vega. And he has a mixed record when it comes to the 50,000 cases that are prosecuted by the DA's office. When he was there, there's a lot of people who are against Carlos Vega, Latinos and African Americans, in the way that they prosecuted cases, and sometimes prosecuted cases unfairly. Now, I like the guy, Fernando. I like Carlos Vega very much so, but I don't think he's going to win this.
I completely agree with you. We had an opportunity at Usala Media to meet Carlos Vega. We had summoned to a meeting. We had invited Larry Krasner, who chose not to bother with us, but we had Carlos Vega, and we also had another candidate that I don't know what happened to him. Do you know? Huh?
Krasner.
No, well, Krasner didn't show up, but the other person who came to Usala and spoke to us. Charles Peruto.
Yeah. Charles Peruto, listen, this is all a political game. Charles Peruto and Carlos Vega are friends. They're buddies, right? So the idea is, if Carlos Vega does not succeed in the primary, Charles Peruto is going to run against Larry Krasner in November. Charles Peruto is not going to win. It's just simply not happening.
I don't think Peruto's interested.
Say that again, Fernando?
Peruto is not interested.
No, he's not interested. The FOP endorsed Peruto. They gave him money. But the interesting aspect of this is that even Carlos Vegas is taking money from progressive groups, even though he's running as a conservative. So, you know, he's walking a slippery slope here. The bottom line is, money is being spent, a lot of money. Carlos Vega, I don't think he has a lot of, I think he has over $100,000 in the coffin. Not enough to run a citywide race. Larry Krasner has over $3 million in the coffin. He's getting funded by big groups like Soros is one of his funders. People criticize him for that. But the Koch brothers, they fund the Republican Party. So what, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So yeah. My assessment is he's gonna win. Larry Krasner, hands down, is gonna win this. He's gonna win re-election.
Okay, so yeah, so we can just stop even discussing these other. Yeah. I was not impressed with Carlos Vega. I mean, I know you say you like him. I was not impressed. I thought he was, whatever charisma is, he has the other side of the coin for that. Stop.
Well, listen, so. You know, if the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
No, it's not about a beauty. It's not a beauty contest. It's about projecting an image of leadership and all that. And,
well, language is in the eyes of the, well, whatever you want to call it. But no, I wasn't impressed. I was not impressed.
Yes. Well, what I'm not impressed about is how strongly the Republicans are trying to change voting laws everywhere because they lost so many votes. And now they're trying to change the way people vote so they don't lose anymore.
Well, listen, there's a lot of things going on that front. Georgia just passed the law that you cannot do electioneering, meaning when people are standing on the line to go vote, you cannot. They just passed the law. You will get cited, even jailed, if you pass even a bottle of water to people that are standing in line. So Georgia just passed the law saying you can't, that's electioneering. So you can't even give people a bottle of water. They're standing, if the lines are long, you can't do that. So there's a lot of funny things happening at this. So this is a great segue into the subject, Fernando, of election law reforms, which is one of the topics that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, because, well, what the reforms that are being proposed in states like Georgia and Arizona and Pennsylvania even, but it's not going to change in Pennsylvania. There's not enough time for it to affect the primary. May 18th. There's no way the law is going to change. But in other states, they're proposing to change everything so that the black vote is why they want to suppress the black vote, because they figured that's why they lost the last election.
Well, yeah, well, across this country, they lost Pennsylvania and across this country.
Yes.
You know, you have Abrams, who ran for governor in Georgia, who mobilized the black vote in massive numbers. This woman flipped Georgia to the Democrats. She flipped it. She flipped it with her grassroots efforts. So here in Pennsylvania, there's also that you know, they want to do these reforms to be enacted, but it's not going to happen for the May 18 primary. So there's going to be an evolution of this. More discussions about this in the near future. Let's see how all that pans out here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell and the other Republicans are really engaged in vote suppression. That's the only thing they want to do right now, because they figure that's the only way they can win some of these elections, by keeping people away from the vote, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, I think, and you know, we've talked a lot about Trump here in Usala, but Trump infused and ignited a lot of passion, one way or the other, and anger towards a lot of people, and you know that affected, and it's going to have this ripple effect on the Republican Party for a very long time, to actually change this back to where the Republican Party was at 4 years ago, 8 years ago. Yeah. And Trump still has a strong hold on the Republican Party. And that's a reality. That guy is not going to go away. He's going to be involved in your face of politics, and you're going to see that soon. You're going to see this coming real soon.
Yes and no. Okay, he still has a name among that base that will never change, no matter what he does, because I think he was right. He could shoot somebody and nothing would happen to him. But only from that point of view, from that base that never changes, never moves, no matter what happens. But I think that eventually, little by little, he's going to be losing power. I mean, he's going to be in court between now and forever, defending himself from charges of corruption, embezzlement, his fake university, what he's doing with properties in New York with taxes. He's going to be like Al Capone behind the jail at some point. So it's going to be tough for him to campaign from there. Anyway, that leads me to some other topic. Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
What's happening with the governor's race? John Fetterman, who once served as mayor and has endorsed State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta over Fetterman. I mean, Mayor Braddock is the one who's supporting Malcolm Kenyatta over Fetterman for the nomination. What do you think of that?
Okay, so let's talk about Malcolm Kenyatta. Look, this kid is ambitious. He has a lot of political ambition. I think he's a little over his head with this. I think,
green.
Yeah, to be quite honest with you, Pennsylvania will never, ever elect a Malcolm Kenyatta to a Senate seat in Washington, D.C. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen because, as you know, Malcolm Kenyatta is an openly gay individual. And you can, in Pennsylvania, even though we have, Philadelphia is very open and very embracing of the LGBTQ community, the center of Pennsylvania is not. Pennsylvania is a very conservative state, and you cannot have a person like Malcolm Kenyatta in your face saying, I'm gay and what, and I'm running and I need your vote. That's not going to happen. It doesn't work that way. So that's one factor that's against Malcolm Kenyatta. So I think he's assuming that he's going to get the votes tallied up in Philadelphia, tallied up in Pittsburgh, which is the two cities that have the most heavily black and brown vote, but it's not going to be enough to cover the gap in the middle, which happened to Donald Trump, what occurred to Donald Trump when he ran against Hillary Clinton, where it was not enough votes in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh, and in the middle, he got the bulk of his vote that he won by over 41,000 votes. So Malcolm Cañada is dead on arrival. I don't care what he does, is dead on arrival. I think he's doing it to get name recognition for himself. He has this hunger for power. He has this hunger to put his face out there. He's just hunger for power, and that's really what boils down with Malcolm Cañada. Fetterman, on the other hand, this guy has a record. He was the mayor of Braddock, lieutenant governor. He's heavy on criminal justice reform in Pennsylvania. He sits on the board of the pardons. He advocates heavily in favor of what's right and fair when it comes to criminal justice. He's done a lot of good things on that front, and he's been attacked all over the place. So I think if you put the Fetterman with Malcolm Cañada, there's a big gap there. And there's no way that Malcolm Cañada is going to win this race. The numbers are not there, the votes are not there, and it's not going to happen. That's my assessment. And don't get me talking about this, because I can talk about this all day long.
Okay, but you can't, because we need to take a very, very short break here in USA La Media, the Roundtable and Voices of Change. Les habla Fernando Méndez with Leslie Acosta and Danny Ramos controlando la máquina digital. Regresamos en 30 segundos. Saludos amigos, los invitamos a escuchar La Mesa Redonda, The Roundtable, donde discutimos los temas del día, hablando de política, educación y otros temas, locales, regionales y mundiales, por USA La Radio. Señores siguientes de USA La Radio, estamos aquí de nuevo con Leslie Acosta, The Voices of Change, and we were talking about the governor's race, which she thinks is already decided. So Fetterman is going to be the next governor, according to Leslie.
Well, no, the Senate race. Right?
The Senate race.
Yeah, the Senate, because the one that's running for lieutenant governor is another openly gay guy. Which
I'm sorry, I confused the two races.
Brian Sims, who's another power hunger guy, who's into his head, who's going to run for lieutenant governor. And it's also openly gay. So look, to each his own. I accept, I embrace everyone, but we also have to deal with this in a logical sense and with reality. You can't be living in this illusion.
So this is for the 2022 Senate race, not the governor's race. And Fetterman, according to Leslie, is way ahead, and there's no competition here. But
no.
There's another issue that is pressing. We should talk about this, COVID-19 and what's happening with the spread of COVID and the vaccine. So there are positive news on one side. We have the vaccine that is apparently proven effective, even with the variants. And then there's the other side of this, which is that the virus is growing. It was going down for a while. It was flat at some point, and now it's growing.
Well, look, according in Pennsylvania, I think, Fernando, approximately 75% have gotten through the vaccinating phase, and you still have like another 31% of the residents who got the first dose. So that's still in process. The issue is that weather's getting warmer. People are gathering without their masks. So there's people that still have not been vaccinated, so they're not adhering to the guidelines of wearing your masks, getting your shot if as quickly as possible, getting vaccinated as quickly as possible, and avoiding gatherings. People are not adhering to those rules. So obviously, if you're not adhering, you're not following these rules, we're going to see a spike. We're going to see a spike in this, and we have to tread this very carefully. And reinforcement of wearing the mask, washing your hands, following the CDC guidelines on what to do to keep safe, that has to stay in effect until we really get this under control.
Well, it's a curious piece of information. All of Pennsylvania's federal lawmakers have received their COVID-19 vaccine, except for US Representative Mike Kelly, Republican, according to a survey of lawmakers from 22 states, the Penn Capital Star reports. How about that? Mike Kelly doesn't want the vaccine.
Well, there's people, it's like me. I've never gotten the flu shot. Never wanted to vaccinate myself with the flu shot. Didn't want to have that germ in my system. But now with the COVID-19, I don't know. I'm still debating. I'm just not too keen with that.
Really?
Yeah. Never did. With the COVID, yes, vaccine, I did because this is a pandemic. I never got it with the flu. With the COVID one, I did because the danger of the COVID-19. And
so you're saying you did have a vaccine?
Yeah, not with the flu. I never got the flu shot. So in response to Mike Kelly not wanting to get the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, there's people like myself who was fearful even with before the COVID, the flu shot. I never got the flu shot, and it was just a decision on my own to never get it, and I was always felt safe. But this COVID-19 is different. It's a whole different dynamic than the flu stuff. That normally.
Well, there's a national public service announcement. Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, who contracted COVID by participating in an event at the Trump White House, a famous garden ceremony at the White House, and he contracted COVID. And so he's advocating vaccine for everybody. He's saying that kept him alive, that cocktail of drugs kept him alive, and he's positive now that we should all be vaccinated. I personally already received my vaccine.
Yeah,
twice.
And it doesn't have any effect. I didn't get any side effects to that. You didn't either, Fernando.
I did not. No,
yeah.
Absolutely. So we should be vaccinated against all the wrong things the Republicans do. That's what I should do.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there a vaccine against Republicans? They're very poisonous. Anyway, this is a very interesting discussion. We have gone all over the map with the things. One more item, then we probably have to discuss this quickly. This whole thing about crime, increase in crime as a result of COVID, as a result of the poverty that COVID has brought to our cities. I don't know what the reason is, but there's a tremendous uptick in crimes.
Yeah, well, listen, we've been dealing with this issue now for quite some time. The gun violence in our city is rampant. We have a new commissioner, outlaw, who was brought in from Portland, Oregon, to contain this, to find ways and solutions to control this. City council members have discussed this over and over again. Now they're discussing how to increase funding to these programs and to seek to interrupt violence before it begins. Well, so tell me, pumping money into these programs, what strategy is in place that determines that it will decrease violence in our city? We cannot continue to throw money into these programs and not contain the violence in our city. Money and policy go hand in hand. It's like faith and salvation. You can't have one without the other. Same thing with this issue of gun violence. You have to have the money to pump into these programs, but you have to also have policy to work together so that these policies can be enacted, reinforced in our city to control this issue of gun violence. Every week I hear in the news, somebody being shot, someone being killed, someone being gunned down. It's rampant. It's out of control. The city council members, instead of talking about putting money into these programs, they should be talking about, let's get with the legislature in Harrisburg. Let's get a meeting of the minds of the people that sit in these committees that deal with gun laws and gun control, and come up with a solution between city government and state government and federal government so that we can control this issue of gun violence in our city. If we don't have those conversations and if we don't have those meetings, Fernando, all of the stuff that city council is doing is obsolete. It defeats the entire purpose of this issue of gun violence in our city. So city council can have all these meetings that they want. They can pump all this money that they want into these programs. If you don't have your politicians at the city and state level talking together to discuss these issues and come up with solutions regarding legislation and policy, is not going to happen. Harrisburg, since 2016, has enacted or has at least introduced 55 laws regarding gun violence. And guess what? Not one has been introduced in committee because the Republicans, they blocked the vote on the House floor. Well, maybe it's time to change your strategy, and maybe it's time to sit with the Republicans on the other side and come up with an agreement on what's fair for all sides, for the Republicans and for the Democrats. What say you?
Well, I say we're running out of time, unfortunately. This is a very
you give me a lot to talk about.
Maybe if you want to join me, we'll do another show tomorrow on this and talk about gun violence. And
we can continue this conversation, yes.
Yes. Bueno, señores oyentes de USA la Media, han escuchado un programa especial de la Mesa Redonda y Voices of Change, and we invite you to listen to us again. Nos despedimos aquí con Dani Ramos en la máquina digital. Muchas gracias. Hasta la próxima.
Saludos amigos, los invitamos a escuchar La Mesa Redonda, The Roundtable, donde discutimos los temas del día, hablando de política, educación y otros temas, locales, regionales y mundiales, por USA la Radio.